Long time no see. Have you missed us? SCW is back live with a Q&A. Of course, if some of us have just actually done a SummerSlam quiz just now. Thank you all that got involved on that one on the channel. First for it as well, and hopefully we'll be doing more of those in the future. Myself, Steve, in-house with the one and only NXSteve as well. How are you doing, Steve?
Good. Finally got over my shoddy score of 6 in that quiz, but I'll live with it. I'll take it to the grave with me.
You can relax more now. I suppose it was a bit more like, oh goodness, like, oh, what questions are going to be thrown at me? But now you can just sort of sit back, relax, and worry about whatever questions everyone's going to ask in the chat.
Yeah, and now I know what to be prepared for next time we do one as well.
Absolutely, indeed, there. Because, yeah, as I say, we will be doing more of these in the future. But, of course, we've got many people in the chat already. And, of course, this is a SummerSlam special, just to say very, very quickly. So feel free to get involved, talk any topic about WWE SummerSlam. Also can be talking NXT, AEW. Of course, the Elite have re-signed with All Elite Wrestling today also. Of course, Impact Wrestling, if you will, also. So let's get involved. C Nation in-house says, I am hyped. He says, 2 streams in one day. Is this a first on the channel? Probably for streams, yes. For video content. Back in the really early days, I used to do ridiculous amount of content in one day. In fact, I probably didn't get a lot of sleep, to be fair, and that's why I burnt out. So yeah, this is 2 streams in one day, and it's probably a first for the channel, yes. But it's good to do it. It's good to have everyone involved as well. WrestleBoom in-house as well. And Robbie Collins, very excited about Impact Wrestling coming to Glasgow. Of course, Impact are doing a UK tour in October, which of course will include Newcastle and Coventry. Coventry's an interesting one, but very happy for the Coventry crowd. They get Impact Wrestling. Very random.
Yeah, very surprised that we didn't get a London date for that. I know obviously up north, especially Newcastle, there's a big wrestling crowd there, but Coventry was such a random one. And so to London, I thought it was really weird.
Were you tempted to have gone to an Impact show had it been more local for you, or would you still be tempted?
I think if it was more local, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine the tickets would have been very expensive. I think it probably would have been along the lines of what AEW were doing for All In. So if depending on, it's just a case of dates, times. I mean, like for the first time in many years, I'm fully booked every weekend in August for a change.
Wow, a busy time indeed there for NXTsteve on the way, but of course, All In is on your calendar, which of course is a very exciting time. Hopefully, some matches will start being announced for this evening. But we're going to talk things WWE and NXT to start off with. And
just to add on, just to add on to that whole All In thing, I was watching a video earlier and someone said that Bubba Ray had said, "Do you know what the gimmick should be for All In is that he doesn't announce any matches at all, and people just turn up not knowing what's going to happen."
How would you feel?
I'd take it. I only paid 30 quid for my ticket. I'm not exactly going to be disappointed. Someone was saying, was it QT Marshall versus Serpentico as the main event?
Can you imagine me flying in for Serpentico and QT Marshall? That would be horrific, wouldn't it, if I was to come over? But yeah, it's probably a good thing that that's not the case at the moment. I'm going to need some matches before I could be tempted.
I tell you what, the good thing is that it's almost sold out and not a single match has been announced yet. I think that's amazing.
It is incredible. It's not just for the UK market, but for wrestling in general. I think it's great to see. There's alternatives as well. It's amazing out there that we have that. But yeah, fingers crossed that we get some good matches announced for All In. But Eric Douglas, then with our first question. You see it on the screen already, waiting patiently. Do you all think Cora is actually leaving WWE or just getting caught up? Of course, she did sort of walk out of the NXT locker room last night, sort of suggesting that she's done after the Dana Brooke match and that she would be going away. I would assume that she would be going to the main roster. I guess Bron Breaker's call up is going to be imminent, perhaps after SummerSlam. Cora Jade would be a good fit on a Raw or SmackDown, would you feel?
Yeah, I just feel like she hasn't done enough in NXT. I think is the only problem. Like at one point, she was up there as one of the candidates to be the next NXT Women's Champion. So, like with Bron possibly coming up, I guess it makes sense for her to come up. But yeah, I think she'll fit in great. She has a different gimmick and look and personality compared to what a lot of the other women on the roster have. So I think she'll fit in well.
I think she'll fit in very well also, and looking forward to seeing where she will fit in when she does go to the main roster. Very early with a nice SummerSlam take here as well. An opinion, Gunther versus Drew McIntyre to be match of the night. Do you feel that WrestleBoom could be on the money here, SummerSlam? I'm really looking forward to Gunther versus Drew McIntyre. It's one of the matches I'm really hyped for.
I'll be honest with you, I'm going to actually stop giving my opinions for what I think match of the night will be, because every time I do it, the match always turns out to suck, unfortunately. So I think I'm jinxing them at this point, but I am looking forward to seeing it. I think it's going to be a good match.
I really think it's going to be a top match as well. Then, keeping things back on NXT, do you think Ilya Dragunov will turn heel? Obviously, very angry that he was arguably cost his match against Carmelo Hayes, of course, and Trick Williams. The business isn't finished, but Trick wants to go out on his own. I felt we were getting a more vicious, nasty streak of Ilya Dragunov at the end of NXT last night, and I've got to say, I felt the heel turn was kind of kicking in, and I kind of liked it. I felt Ilya's been missing something of late. Some people may think I'm crazy saying that, but for me, matches have been great, but I felt like as a character, I feel the heel turn just could be just what he needs, and I'm quite excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really been, let's say, relevant since he won the NXT UK Championship off of Gunther. I mean, everything he's done in NXT really hasn't been anything noteworthy, I suppose. I think it's probably the right time to do a gimmick change, turn him heel, and then, just, make something else out of him, because he's not getting over, unfortunately, with what he's currently doing. Like you said, his wrestling's great, but I'm with you. I think it'd be a good change to see him do something heel.
Absolutely. And look, end of the day, he apparently has come out and said he doesn't want to join Imperium when it comes down to it. But at the same time, I would love to see him in Imperium. Of course, if he was a heel as well, that's kind of fit the narrative if they call him up one day. But also opens the door for a rematch with Carmelo Hayes as well at some point down the line as actual face and heel dynamics. So all in all, I think it ticks a lot of boxes for me. I'm quite excited to where it could lead.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think with that roster at the minute there's no sort of clear direction of who the next person to take that title off Carmelo is going to be. I think Carmelo's kind of burnt through most of the NXT roster now, and it's like he has all these trophies and accolades of all these people he's beaten, and it's kind of they're booking themselves into the corner that they don't really know who's going to be next to take that title.
No, and that's the thing. It'll be interesting to see how it's going to go down. It's an exciting time in NXT right now. Really enjoyed a lot of the booking of what we've seen over the course of the last couple of days, particularly Wesley as well, getting his chance in the main event scene as well. WrestleBoom says, hot take, LA Knight is more over than Cody Rhodes. I think both are over like Rover, but you can't argue LA Knight at the moment is doing incredible things at the moment. A top merchandise seller for July as well. 4 of the 5 top t-shirts, if I'm not mistaken, with WWE as well. Surely, if he's not going to win the Battle Royale, the storyline is going to be there for him from the Battle Royale to actually get him finally moving in the right direction in WWE.
Well, this is the thing. We sit here, and every day we sit there and we look at all these news outlets, and every time it's the same thing. LA Knight's due for a big push, and now it's LA Knight's big push has been delayed until after SummerSlam. And at this point, it's like I'm sitting there waiting for them to turn around and go, no, LA Knight's big push has been delayed again. Blah blah blah. It just seems to be a consistent thing with WWE. Like recently, over the last few years, they've been really reluctant to strike when the iron is hot. Like Daniel Bryan and Kofi Mania were kind of like the last 2 big ones. But any other time someone else has had some major like crowd backing, they've not done anything with them. Like LA Knight, like you can see from even just like the London crowd, and every time he comes out, the crowd go like even his views on the YouTube channel. Every segment LA Knight's in, he's getting sometimes 3, 4, 5 times as many views as any other video they put out from the highlights of the show. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's just a case of waiting to see if WWE actually do anything with him.
Absolutely. I hope so. Really hope the time is coming. That's what we want to see. C Nation, a bit of Impact talk for us now, and I've got to say I agree with a lot of it. Subculture are about to be transitional champions. The Rascals are number 1 contenders. Of course, we've got Zachary Wentz and Trey Miguel. They are. Who actually won a number 1 contenders Impact Tag Team Tournament and will most likely win them at Emergence. I can see that as well. And Def Funk, which of course is Rich Swann and Sami Callihan, will beat the Rascals to win the Impact Tag Team titles at Hard to Kill is the prediction of C Nation. Do you know what? I think that's a good timeline that you've got written out there. I quite like that. C Nation a lot. Mike Tanhabs Mike says Roman will retain, but Jimmy double cross Jay, or will a debuting or returning star cross Jay on Saturday? Of course, obviously we're going to reserve our predictions to tomorrow. The prediction stream is tomorrow, but Do we see potentially with Roman and Jay, obviously a potential wide return for Jimmy could get involved in the match? Do we see other members of the Bloodline? Obviously, we've seen Alpha and Seeker, of course, the head of the table stuff that Crown Roman Reigns to begin with. Could we see someone like Rikishi come in? What about The Rock? He's been rumored, of course, but it has been shot down as well. I've seen with a couple of people, but obviously been hyped up as well. Do we see more members of the Bloodline in different fashion coming in to get involved in tribal combats?
Yeah, it's more of a case of wait and see, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, The Rock is a great shout, especially with the writer's strike that's on at the minute. So, like a lot of films have been delayed. So, at the minute, The Rock's just got time to kill. I wouldn't be surprised if he does pop out after the match. But like I said, it's okay. It's a really hard one. We'll get into it more tomorrow. But like, it's a really strange one. Like I still don't even understand the full concept of a tribal war. Is essentially no holds barred, anything goes, extreme rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of that element involved in the match. And obviously, that means perhaps maybe other members of the family may choose to get involved. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe they will pick a side. Maybe they're sick of Roman. Yeah, maybe they're sick of Roman being head of the table. And I mean, there was a couple of theories that could come out of this that I will say for tomorrow. But yeah, it could be interesting to see. I'll give it away now. Maybe someone walks away as champion, but not necessarily as head of the table. I mean, there's a lot on the line on this match. There's everything there to play for, not just the championship. So it's going to be exciting to see how it will play out. But C Nation says it's crazy to think that Channing Stacks Lorenzo and Troy Two Dimes Donovan could have been NXT Tag Team Champions if Troy Two Dimes Donovan had never left for AEW. And of course, seems to be missing now in AEW. I haven't seen him on TV for a very long time, but it is interesting.
Two Dimes actually got released because. It was released for some reason or another, but they told him to come back in a year's time. So I don't know if it was a case of a wellness policy violation or something like that. But that's the reason why he was obviously released from WWE. But who knows? Yeah, it's a shame. But like I said, I think seeing Stacks and the Don as champions, I think kind of makes up for it, really. And it's glad to see the Don finally doing something as well, because I feel he's another one in NXT that's gone so long and not really achieved anything in NXT.
Absolutely. But I mean, ultimately, we now have obviously Tony D and Stacks are the tag team champions at this point. And I feel that for me, Stacks has. I like the direction of how he's kind of gone as a character. It was kind of like a behind the scenes man. He's almost now the equal, it feels, with Tony D to a degree. That sort of co-head boss they've got going on.
He's had to step up since the other guy got released. Yeah, so I'm glad that he's managed to like step up and like, do you know what I mean, raise the profile of himself in the last sort of 6 months.
Absolutely, indeed. The Astrid Bazaar in the house. Astrid, how are you doing? Thank you for checking this out. Hope you're keeping well. Very fortunate to be with her and Ed Fries for the NXT Great American Bash predictions on her channel, as well as our local establishment. Got to check out the review as well. Fantastic stuff from you both also there. And make sure to get to subscribe to Astrid. Doing great work. And of course, she does some writing work as well on the wrestling site. So Astrid, familiarize me again which one it is that you are writing for, but a fantastic piece on women's wrestling in AEW as well that she released just recently. It's a very good read. Pierre says, if I was to book 4 wrestler versus celebrity matches at SummerSlam, this card will get very full very quickly, Pierre. Becky Lynch versus Tessa Thompson, Cody Rhodes versus Simon Cowell, love that. Seth Freakin Rollins versus Conor McGregor, and he has Ronda Rousey versus Katy Perry or Heidi Klum. Some outside of the box matches there, but he says, what wrestler versus celebrity match would you book? So I guess we only have to pick one. What would you do as a celebrity versus wrestler match?
I would want. I don't even know. I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to think who's kind of like in the mainstream media now that would help bring more eyes to the product. I mean, maybe the President Joe Biden versus Vince McMahon. There you go. That's what I'm going to go with.
I mean, it was a big time match, isn't it? Donald Trump could have been in there for revenge after WrestleMania 23, couldn't it? But at the same time, like, I mean, we talk about celebrities in wrestling. It's very high profile these days. Obviously, Bad Bunny, of course, with the Backlash show this year. Logan Paul will be on this show against Ricochet, which I think the match would do really, really well on SummerSlam. I think it'll be one of the more popular matches when we look back for viral moments, and obviously for just, I think, fan reaction in general. It's a great real opportunity for Ricochet to really stand out and get a breakout moment for himself in the WWE roster. But as a wrestler versus celebrity match, I mean, goodness, you can pick who you want these days, but I will go with, I like the idea of Conor McGregor. I know I'm taking it from your answer, but Conor McGregor for me does feel like someone that I think if you're going to bring him from his world into wrestling, I think that could be quite a nice touch. So for me, you've gone with Seth Freakin Rollins. That could be an interesting one. I want someone that's you go first. Given you go first.
The two answers I thought if you're going to put Conor McGregor in is one is obviously Matt Riddle, but the other one I think which would actually be more of a killer match is Chad Gable.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Chad Gable would be a lot of fun indeed there. I trying to think of like a silver tongue wizard, someone that could give Conor just as good as he gets on the mic. Obviously,
okay.
The Stone Cold Steve Austin back in the day would have been amazing for it. Yeah, LA Knight, probably LA Knight would be perfect. Yeah, LA Knight versus Conor McGregor. Book it. That's what I say. Do we think Wesley is going to turn heel? I personally don't see it. I do see a face versus face match with Carmelo Hayes. The best man will win. But how do you see NXT? Do you see Wesley going on a heel turn after a losing run of late in NXT?
Probably not. I mean, let's be honest, Wesley needs a losing run for a bit because he's been so dominant with that North American Championship, and Dominic taking off him kind of is a blessing in disguise. It was kind of a very well booked way to get the title off of him, if I'm honest with you. I think he could do with a losing run. I think I'd be more interested in seeing the only way is up kind of direction from Wesley. Like he gets to a point where he's lost so many that he just has to start winning, and he just starts winning and winning and winning, and finally goes on to bigger and better things.
Absolutely, yeah. Fingers crossed that's how it's going to work out for Wesley. I'm a big fan of Wesley. He's really built himself up since becoming North American champion. I've really enjoyed his run. Going into SummerSlam talk, and I've got to say, I love that this has come in here from West Coast Podcast. Ronda and Baszler video package was so good. Hope they do something special for Ronda's send-off. I've got to say, the video packages they had for them on Raw was perfect. Really captivated the story. Really give you a history lesson into their relationship as where they kind of met, how they became friends. Kind of played the good and the bad cop as well in different parts of the video as well. Obviously, Baszler feeling like she was like a victim that was, being abused, living with Shayna with rent free, but getting beaten up all the time to get that. But obviously, turn around and saying, "Look, I'm the godmother to Ronda's baby girl, and I'm gonna beat up her mother, basically. For I'm not gonna be liked by her anymore." There was the good and the bad on both sides, and I've got to say, the video package for me, I'm so much more invested in that match just by those few minutes alone. It goes to show what WWE can do on a production value.
Exactly what I was about to say. But it's like for the first time in a long time, I'm invested in Ronda Rousey. Do you know what I mean? And all it took was one decent video package for years. Like, there's been so many times I've just gone, I'm so done with Ronda Rousey. And then they always do those one little things like, do you remember the backstage brawl that Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda had where they all got arrested? And one of them hanging out the car, and Charlotte just boots Ronda in the side of the head. I think it is one of the best segments I've ever seen Ronda Rousey doing. It's like you see stuff like that, and it gives you more hope that Ronda will go on and do something better. But like I said, this is her bow out. I think it's a great way to send her off, have a decent story. This was kind of always the dynamic we knew we was going to get with these two. We just thought it may have been towards Mania next year, but I'm all up for it, man. Like I said, I think it's time for Ronda to go and do something else. She's lost at Mania apart from her debut match, she's lost every other Mania match. She's had iffy women's championship runs. Do you know what I mean? Losing to Liv Morgan isn't kind of the best booking for her, so hopefully she goes on to bigger and better things.
Fingers crossed. I hope that she's happy whatever she does. I know that she doesn't get the full popularity from a lot of the fan base in wrestling, and obviously I still feel it's a big missed opportunity with a lot of things that have happened in her WWE career. I think a lot of things could have been booked a lot smoothly, a lot better. When you think about the Becky Lynch match, never happened one-on-one, for example. We never saw the proper tag team run, but we could have got with Ronda and Shayna. That was delayed for months, and when we finally got it, they broke up really quickly. The breakup itself, that match was cut down half of the time, it felt, so the breakup was done all of a sudden out of nowhere as well. It really felt it come out of left field, but everything that was done this past week for these two on Raw just set the match up perfectly. And now it's MMA rules as well. Looking forward to the match. Have a fear how it's going to go, but of course we'll save that till tomorrow. But looking forward to it. I've got to say that this has become one of the matches I'm quite excited for.
It's just a shame we never got the 4 horsewomen versus the 4 horsewomen. That's the only probably the biggest letdown was what we never got with these women.
Absolutely. That's another one of those really what if moments we could have got with them. And C Nation goes on to say about Wesley, he was one of the few people that thought he'd go into the NXT title picture. And C Nation, you was correct indeed. And he goes on to say as well, Ilya Dragunov should not beat Gunther for the win the IC title because then you're repeating history and no one will get the rub. Ilya already would have had it. I agree with him and I disagree with him at the same time. How do you see this, NXSteve?
I mean, they're trying to make Gunther look like this unstoppable monster when it kind of makes sense for you to have Dragunov do it because he's the one guy that's beaten Gunther before. If you know what I mean, it kind of almost is. It's like it's almost a self-written story. Like Dragunov would turn around and be like, "No one's beaten you, but I've beaten you. I've taken gold off of you before, and I can do it again." The story writes itself. I'd be well up for seeing it.
I would as well. The thing is, where I agree with C Nation is like, yeah, you want to build someone else up. But at the same time, Ilya Dragunov won it, I think, during the pandemic in NXT UK. It's a much smaller audience than the mainstream audience. So, of course, it's more eyes would see it this time. It would do a much better job this time than it would the other time. But at the same time...
Well, I think he won it at a takeover.
Was it a takeover? Either or.
It was a US takeover.
Either way, I mean, it's like Raw, SmackDown, a premium live event. It's a much bigger mainstream audience than it is compared to NXT in any format. At the same time, though, I would prefer to see someone else defeat Gunther for the IC title. I prefer it would not be Ilya either. I think Ilya's got work to do in NXT still before he's caught up to Raw, SmackDown. Absolutely. And I personally think that the person could be Drew McIntyre. The question is, will it be at SummerSlam? Scott Retro Wrestling says, I've had a break from pretty much most things wrestling since WrestleMania, i.e. content creation, watching, etc. But the past few weeks, I'm slowly getting back into it. And I've got to say, start off with that. It's great to see Scott Retro Wrestling back on the YouTube content creating scene. Obviously, very much hands-on as well with a lot of the retro content. Is very dedicated, as well. So it's good to see you back in it, and good to see you watching wrestling as well. I hope you're enjoying it. And SummerSlam is a good show to get back into as well. And he does ask the question here: what is the longest you have gone without a break from wrestling? So I guess what's the longest break we've had? NXT, what about you? Have you had a long break before from WWE or wrestling in general?
When was Jack Swagger world champion?
2010.
Yeah, so roughly 2010 probably would have been about 2 or 3 years. I think for me personally, around that time, the creative wasn't exactly great. There wasn't exactly the best talent on the roster at that time. There was like one or two like pick of the bunch, but you're trying to hope that one or two get prominent placing on WWE booking in 2010, and it just wasn't happening. I think I was always like up to date with it, but I think that's when I was completely checked out of it. Like I would still watch Mania every year, but yeah, it's not like I am now where I watch basically every pay-per-view every month. Like Mania and the Rumble I would watch because Rumble's my favorite pay-per-view. Mania's Mania, but everything else I just wouldn't bother with. But yeah, it was roughly around the time, say, Jack Swagger was world champion. I was just like, how am I supposed to believe, like, be invested in nothing too big as Jack Swagger? It's just I wasn't invested in his character, and I've got why am I spending 3 hours on a Monday watching this when like I've got no interest in it at all?
I understand. I think that's a fair comment as well. I've never really gone away. I had about a 2-3 month spell where I kind of was forced to. I didn't have access to it because I was living in the UK, and then I wasn't living in the UK. I moved overseas, so I didn't have access for about 3 months in 2006. So that was my, I suppose, break, if you want, because at that point did come a point where I didn't miss it as much. And I remember that when I did have access to it, I decided, I've heard there's a show that's coming up, because I would still read what happened, but I wasn't as keen to see it. But I thought to myself, I'll watch it anyway. I want to say it was like a Cyber Sunday, Taboo Tuesday, one of those sort of shows. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're dragged back in.
That's not good, man.
I know.
How did you get reinvested in wrestling from a Taboo Tuesday or a Cyber Sunday?
I always liked the voting part. I always knew we weren't really deciding it. WWE planted the idea in your heads of what match to vote for, or
I don't know.
In my opinion, was
I'm pretty sure one of them. I'm pretty sure was a legit thing, because there's some of the votes on one of those. Because I remember watching a video on it, and it was like some of the people that were getting picked for some of the matches. You were like, WWE would never pick this person. And I think since that original one where the fans did legitimately vote, I think the rest of them were all, you guys voted for this. And it's like, I remember one of them. One of them was like a match stipulation. It's like, what do you want? A Falls Count Anywhere, a Hell in a Cell, or a Rage in a Cage, or something stupid like that. And like the winning thing was a Falls Count Anywhere. Like, no one wants to see a Falls Count Anywhere match over a Hell in a Cell ever in the history of wrestling. Why are you lying to us? Don't make it up.
Why did that arm wrestling match get 94%? Yeah, no, it would never happen, would it? Never would happen.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's how you can tell it's rubbish when they've done so many arm wrestling things since, and you're like, right, it's definitely a Vince thing then.
To be fair, I mean, like the only thing I would say that just to grasp on it, the Survivor Series followed not long afterwards, and to be fair, we was in the reign of King Booker, which I must admit I did quite enjoy his reign as champion at that point. It was quite a glorious spell, and yeah, after that I was hooked back in, especially with the likes of Mr. Kennedy as well. I was a big fan of back in that time as well. Pierre says, after what I saw on Raw, Chad Gable should beat Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. I must admit, I really did enjoy their interaction together. NXSteve, how do you feel about this?
Spot on. What a great performance by Chad Gable. For me, I think he just needs to get more serious now. I really, as much as I do love the shushing, I don't think they can take him seriously with beating Gunther because of his gimmick. I think that's just the way it is at the minute. I really want Chad Gable to do well. So many times in the last year, he's had fantastic matches against certain people where you're like, I want to see Chad Gable do this now. I want to see Chad Gable go on to win bigger things.
I do as well. Alpha Academy, I think, are my favorite tag team. They're really that sort of throwback to like a goofball team that you'd see in the 80s, early 90s, and just the way that they are. But like you say, when Chad Gable was serious and got his head on, I mean, he can pretty much do the Kurt Angle thing. He's just, you know, he's not Kurt Angle, obviously. Do you know what I mean? But he's literally the best that WWE are going to get to finding that. It's not going to be Gable Steveson. I'm sorry to throw it out there, but you know, Chad Gable's, you know, can run rings around him at this point. I know that there's a difference in years and experience and the rest of it, but I just feel to myself that I don't believe Chad Gable to be the one to beat Gunther. That's just my take on that. But I certainly would like to see Chad Gable either back in the tag team picture with the titles, or certainly, like you say, more serious side, start pushing him in a different way. Noob & Co says, hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well, Noob. Thank you for checking out the stream. Looking forward to your questions very shortly as we catch up with the chat. Sinister says, hot take, Dirty Dom is a better heel than Roman Reigns. Yes, Roman is better, but Roman doesn't get booed and Dirty Dom gets booed. Well, Dirty Dom does get no chance to say any words on the microphone. They both do get their boos, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, hot take from C Nation, is it hot or cold for you?
I think they're both exactly the same. I don't think there's any real difference. I think it's just a natural progression. Because let's be honest, when Dom was teaming with his dad, no one liked him. He was so boring as a babyface. And it was only when he turned heel that people started being interested in him and he started doing stuff of relevancy. And they're naturally getting booed for every time he talks. It's just a great way to get him over as a heel. He is a naturally great heel. He's a very Eddie Guerrero. Like Eddie was great, but as a, you know, I've always thought he was better as a heel than he was a face. Almost like it's as well like Charlotte. It's exactly the same, much better heel than a face. And yeah, I think Roman and Dom are just exactly the same. Let's be honest, there was years where people didn't like Roman because he was being shoved down the throat, and finally he gets given some good narrative, which is the same as Dom. He's finally given some good narrative, good creative, and he's won himself over and he's doing really good stuff.
Absolutely. I'm enjoying both of their work. Obviously, if Dominic can keep it on for as long as Roman has done his heel work, then obviously I would definitely put it in the same conversation. But of course, Dom has done so well over the last 12 months. And like you say, I mean, you can see he studied Eddie Guerrero as well. Some of the mannerisms, the facials, yes, just the little tweaks in the character Dominic is throwing out, you can see he studied Eddie.
I made that TikTok video like 2 years ago, and I sent to you, and I said, you know what they should do was turn Dom into Eddie Guerrero, and they're finally doing it. So I think someone must have seen my TikTok. No, I'm not taking the credit, but I will take the credit if you know what I mean. But yeah, it was just a naturally right thing to do with him. Rhea is the perfect fit to be a China. Do you know what I mean? They just have that aesthetic of an Eddie Guerrero in China. And like I said to you, when if Dom had won the Money in the Bank, I would love to have seen him try and cash in on Rhea. I thought that would have been hilarious. I think
that would have been
great.
I would have been awesome. Yeah, I'd like that shout. It's really, really cool. And obviously, you don't necessarily need the credit, but certainly the royalties would definitely be good, I would say. They definitely deserve them. C Nation says, do you know how long Kevin Owens will be out? I'm not actually aware of how long the injury will be at this moment, but obviously they've not had to relinquish the tag team championships yet, which I assume that's a good sign at this particular moment.
Yeah, I would believe so, because normally it's with the rule is if he can't defend the titles within 30 days, he has to forfeit them. So I imagine it's not going to be for a long amount of time. It's probably going to be a case of if they need to write him. Well, no, because then they'd still take the titles off of him. So maybe a couple of weeks, I would suggest. I can't imagine it's nothing too bad. But then I think the more worrying thing is, like, I don't know if you saw it this week, that Kevin Owens was interviewed and he was on about how much longer he's actually got in professional wrestling. Like, because he's, like, I don't know what his whole end goal is, but he was saying that years, like, he couldn't see himself not in the wrestling business. And now he's a little bit older, a little bit wiser. And it's like, I'd love to see, like, because he claims that he hasn't got a lot left to achieve. And it's like, dude, you've still got a lot left to achieve, man. You could still go on the stuff you haven't done in WWE. You haven't won a Rumble. You haven't really been a world champion for longer than 5 minutes, which I think is a crying shame. You could go and win the King of the Ring. You could go on and do so many more things, man. You could go back to NXT. I think he's got so much more to offer the business.
I would love to see KO continue in the business, but obviously he could always become a producer, an agent as well, and that would be a great asset to behind the scenes as well. KO's definitely got a great mind for the business. I hope that KO does re-sign. I'd like to think he will. I think he's just putting the feelers out there that, maybe it's not going to be a full-time deal. Maybe it's a part-time deal after this. We'll have to wait and see. But KO, we should appreciate him while we have him. A tremendous talent, and certainly one of my personal favorites. C Nation, very happy, by the way. 2 streams on this channel is so awesome. Thank you, CD. It's very kind of you to say. We've got a question here for SummerSlam related from Robbie Collins asking, do we know the rules for the Ronda MMA match? I don't officially know the rules. Obviously, I'm guessing it's not going to be Fight Pit, not going to be Lions Den. Almost was going to be involved in that SummerSlam quiz, the Lions Den match from 1998, but I saved myself from that one. What do you see with this MMA match? I guess it's going to be a fight. That's something these girls have kind of put here. I guess perhaps referee stoppage, stuff like that. Maybe a NXT underground style environment, no ring ropes. How do you see it going down?
I really hope this isn't a way for Endeavor to really try and promote MMA through WWE's by having these two have a match, because we all know about wrestling being scripted. Don't tell anyone though. But yeah, it's a case of, do you know what I mean? It's like having an MMA fight be scripted. I don't know. It's going to be a really tough subject to sort of talk about. Really, we'll see. Like come Saturday night, what happens? But I don't know. It's a really strange one to have, the fact that they're going to do an MMA match.
It'll be interesting how they're going to do it. To be fair to Robbie, as a quick answer, I've got no idea. But one thing is for sure, after their video package, I'm very much looking forward to finding out on Saturday.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what I will say at this point. But Nubico says, will Kairi Sane make a return to SummerSlam as evidence of a tweet today? I should have been on Twitter more, or X. What is it these days? X, I guess it is. I would like to see her get back at Bayley for what happened 3 years ago. Do you miss Kairi Sane in WWE?
I mean, yes and no. I think she had a place, but it was more of a case of, like, on the most of them, she done most of her best work in NXT and like kind of just got lost in the shuffle when they got moved up, and then they did the stereotypical thing by putting her in a tag team with Asuka. And yeah, I suppose yes and no for some things, but I mean, if obviously this was 2019 NXT, I'd say absolutely.
The thing is, I'll be honest, I want to see her come back. Watching the match with Mercedes Moné earlier this year, I was like, it'd be great to see Kairi back in WWE. And I was rumored around Royal Rumble season. I was like, go on, if that could happen, that'd be amazing. But it didn't happen, and I would love to see it happen. If I had to predict now, of all the potential rumors of returns out there, Kairi Sane wouldn't be top of my list. But would I be happy if she came back? I would be. I wouldn't mind seeing her come back to WWE at some point down the line if it was ever in the alignment of the stars. WrestleBoom's early prediction: Carmelo Hayes versus Trick Williams, stand and deliver 2024. I think it's a great little shout there for us here. C Nation as well says, honestly, Trick will be more successful on the main roster than Carmelo Hayes. Usually the most successful people on NXT found on the main roster, Johnny Gargano, for example. There are many examples on both sides of the argument, though. What about Seth Freakin Rollins? What about Roman Reigns? They've all been very successful, but there are some, like you say, that just don't work out, the indie style wrestlers. How do you see Trick and Carmelo on the main roster? I think both would be fine.
I think it's not so much that they failed. I just think that it's Vince doesn't get them. Like, if you look at again, 2019 NXT, and you have people like Johnny and Ciampa. They're not 6'6". They're not 285 pounds. They're not built like brick houses. And do you know what I mean? It's like they're not your stereotypical Vince McMahon guys. And it's like the fact that Matt Riddle gets a push because he liked the idea that he doesn't wear shoes because he nearly lost his feet due to hypothermia. You just kind of, it leaves it all to your imagination what kind of, like what goes on in that guy's head. I imagine it's just a room full of cuckoo clocks most of the time. But yeah, it's just a shame that people like Johnny don't get a chance. It's like, again, it's just booking at the end of the day. But when it comes to Trick and Carmelo, you'd like to think so, but then again, because they're part of the whole NXT system. Like these guys come through their training process, they come through the center, the performance center. So you'd like to think that they've got all the chance in the world of making it, like for instance, to the levels that Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins are on. But it's Seth Rollins is the pure example that it's a guy that had an indie background that is now top of the world. He's world champion, and it's like Vince. I don't think Vince knew he had an indie career before he got called up, because I think if he'd known that, I don't think Seth would be in the position where he is now.
It's potential. It's a good argument you make there, to be fair on that. But like you say, it'd be interesting to see. It's a shame with people like Johnny Wrestling. There's just nothing there at the moment. Of course, he was off for a little while. He did return at a live event, I believe, losing to almost last weekend. So let's wait and see. He might return after SummerSlam. Maybe we'll get the DIY reunion. Maybe the way we'll finally get something to get a bit of direction. Pun intended.
From what I hear, the way apparently that's dead. They're giving up on that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They're saying they've given up on it, but yet they haven't done anything with it to give up on it, apparently. So who knows? But hey, at least Ciampa's on the TV wrestling. I mean, I can't ask for more than that, I suppose.
We like a bit of Ciampa. We can't lie with that there. We'll go through these NXT comments now. D'Angelo and Stacks, favorite tag team in NXT. They're so entertaining. Love that shout there from C Nation. They're doing great work. And crazy to think that Stacks has been booked well as a single star. Even got a victory over Joe Coffey. He did indeed. Do we think Damien Priest will cash in Money in the Bank at SummerSlam? Kind of giving away a prediction by doing this, but I think that I'll give you a percentage. I think that there's a potentially good chance that Damien Priest will be the one to cash in on SummerSlam.
I'm telling you now, my predictions are going to be completely outrageous for SummerSlam. You need to tune in tomorrow to watch them, because I'm going to say some stupidly outrageous and outlandish stuff.
And that's why we book him, ladies and gentlemen. I can't wait. I cannot wait, honestly. Bareback Audit says Fury versus Reigns obviously was a shout there for celebrity versus wrestler there. Obviously Tyson Fury. Been a while since we've seen him in a WWE ring. Sinister with a few comments now. We'll go through them. And says, you know what? The family held the NXT Tag Team Championships, the NXT Go Home show, then won them at the Great American Bash. There we go. They actually broke logic. That's crazy indeed. Then the New Day also held up the Tag Team Championships on the Go Home show and won it there. It feels a little bit like that Shawn Michaels is breaking the rules. Well, he's been known for that, hasn't he?
It's cheating like he's seen the answer sheet somewhere before.
It's like he's a degenerate or something. I don't know what it is. But Sination says Logan Paul is beating Ricochet at SummerSlam because Logan Paul has lost his last two matches. He certainly needs a win at this point, but certainly could be a great feeling for Ricochet to get a breakout moment as well. We'll have to wait and see how it will play out on SummerSlam. Scott Retro Wrestling, with the news of Trish versus Becky not being on SummerSlam, has it come time for another Big Four pay-per-view to be two-nighters? What's your feeling with SummerSlam? Should it stay the one night, or do you reckon it should go to two?
I said this ages ago that the Big 4/5, if you include Money in the Bank, should all be two-night events. I think that they should make a big deal out of them, especially Rumble, because it has two Rumble matches. They tend to go about an hour each, and it's really hard to get a lot of wrestling on when you've got two matches that are guaranteed to go about an hour. And it's like, you want to kind of spread that out. So Rumble is a cert that should be two nights. I mean, it automatically is. I don't see why Survivor Series and SummerSlam shouldn't be. I think they should make these four pay-per-views a bigger deal than what they are. Money in the Bank is kind of like the fifth biggest one now. Whether they just scrap it entirely and just move the Money in the Bank match into Mania or something, I think would probably be a lot better. I think that's probably the safest bet, because in that way you can just make SummerSlam, Survivor Series, WrestleMania, and Royal Rumble a much more bigger deal.
I like the sound of it. You make compelling arguments with that. I can't lie. For me personally, I think there's more reasons for this simply than just, we can't fit any more matches on for Trish versus Becky. I mean, Trish to get a broken nose at Money in the Bank, it could be a situation that she wants that to heal more because she's not really been in the ring since then. And maybe by the time they go to Canada, then she'll be fully healed or in a position where she can have that match better. Maybe SummerSlam was just that bit too soon after what happened in the UK. But also, with it being in Canada, I know that Trish is the heel in this scenario, but obviously that's going to be a big selling point. If they need to boost some ticket sales, if they want to do something to try and make that a bigger show, they've done that. That's a big time match to put on that show. Of course, I'll be disappointed that it's not on SummerSlam. Yes, I will certainly be on SummerSlam. I was happy though, if you looked at my earlier of how I booked SummerSlam for this to go all the way to Payback. I just don't think it's going to get there. But what I will say is though, to answer the question, should all the big fours be two-nighters? For me, I'm going to say no. I agree with the Royal Rumble becoming a two-nighter, like you say, with the Royal Rumble matches. I think they breathe better, and I think it's better for the audience because usually I enjoy the first one more than the second one on most occasions. Although this year, I do think the women's was better than the men's. Although the men both were actually booked quite well actually this year, but at the same time, usually I prefer one over the other because I'm burnt out by the second Rumble match. But at the second time, I would say that WrestleMania makes sense. SummerSlam for me, I like where it's at. I don't know. I think if ever becomes two nights for me, I would just feel like there's just too much wrestling. And I mean, obviously, watching as much as we do already at the minute, it does feel like that it's easy to get burnout.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the only thing I'm looking at is like you could get away with doing 2-3 hour shows. Do you know what I mean? So you don't burn yourself out on it. You could get all your titles on the night. And the thing is, they can make weekends out of them because you have your SmackDown on the Friday, then you have your 2 nights of the pay-per-view, you have your Raw on the Monday. Make them a big weekend deal, just like they do with Mania, because obviously Mania has the Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff. Survivor Series, depending on what they did with that. Survivor Series is probably the hardest one to book because it depends on what dynamic they use. Because if they do brand versus brand, it'd be really, really hard to try and book that over 2 nights. So, yeah, that's the only one that's kind of a bit of a tough one to book.
Absolutely. Or if you do 2 War Games matches, or if you can have one night of traditional Survivor Series and you can bring the War Games into night 2, depending on what you wanted to do. So there are ways and means about it. Obviously, something that I think will remain open to debate each every time we get one of these big shows, because usually there are more matches on them. And like you say, shorter shows do make it a bit easier to breathe for the wrestling fan. WrestleBoom here says, Braun Strowman versus Bronson Reed, the Battle of the Titans at WrestleMania 40. Do like the sound of it, I cannot lie. C Nation here asked the question about Seth Rollins being his favorite wrestler of all time. Who is our favorite wrestler of all time? NXT, I'll let you start.
I don't really have if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Kevin Owens. He out of the ring, he's great. Inside the ring, he's great. I'm just gonna go with Kevin Owens. I have a Mount Rushmore, but it's like I'm not gonna sit there and delve into the other 3 when it's just Kevin Owens.
I like it though. Shawn Michaels probably is my answer, really, if I look back up from being a kid to now, like following his entire career. But I was a big fan of Rob Van Dam. When I watched him in ECW for the first time, like he just was different to everybody else out there. He was innovative, the way he did his moveset. Obviously, the violence was still chairs being involved as well. The Van Daminator, the Van Terminator. So for me, RVD does take that. WrestleBoom says, imagine Grayson Waller versus The Rock in the future. There has been teasers for SummerSlam, the Grayson Waller effect being a part of the show, The Rock turning up. I mean, John Cena and Grayson Waller happened recently. Grayson Waller and Edge happened recently. Grayson Waller's shtick at the moment seems to be with legends. Could there just be an outside chance that The Rock could turn up at SummerSlam? And if he was to, is this the right place for it to address Grayson Waller, or should it be more likely he should get involved with the Bloodline?
No, The Rock's definitely. If The Rock is returning, it has to be Bloodline because we hope and we pray that we get Roman versus The Rock. It's the one. It's another one of them matches that we hope happens, that needs to happen. Really, I think if they were going to book anyone, it'd be John versus Waller in a proper match. And I know those 2 did have a scuffle at Money in the Bank, but I think if you put these 2 in a proper match, I'd actually like to see Grayson Waller get the upper hand and maybe pick up a victory against John Cena. I think it would do him a world of good. Grayson Waller is then the new legend killer.
I like that idea of the legend killer for Grayson Waller. Certainly, he's got a very bright future, whatever happens for him. And the thing is, he actually doesn't get hurt losing in these matches currently either, especially with the Edge match was the main event of that SmackDown in Madison Square Garden. It's a great start for Grayson Waller so far in his WWE career. C Nation says, fun fact, if Wesley beats Kamala Hayes to win the NXT Championship, he'd be the one to be the third Triple Crown winner after Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole, baby. There you go. Russell Boom says, my opinion that Shayna Baszler should be the one to dethrone Rhea Ripley. There we go. Obviously, at this moment, that is a possibility. They're both on Monday Night Raw. Obviously, Shayna Baszler, if we assume we can give this one away a little bit early, I guess it seems inevitable Ronda's leaving after SummerSlam. If Baszler gets that rub then, wins the MMA rules match, should Baszler then be someone that is pushed up the card, or do you think that WWE then will go, well, we've give Ronda what was in the contract, we give her what we want, we give the big Shayna push, we give the rub, but we've done our bit now, she can go back and do what she wants in catering?
This is the thing there. This is where you've got to hope that Triple H loves Shayna, and you'd think that he would do the right thing and make her the next person to even attempt going after Rhea Ripley, but then there is the whole Raquel Rodriguez dynamic, whether whatever comes from that, because I presume that was another match that was meant to be on the card for SummerSlam that's now been pushed off. So whether Raquel is the next one, and it's like, well, what do you do with Shayna for the time being? It's like it's a very, very touchy situation, but I would like to think that Shayna beating Ronda would automatically put her as a number one for Rhea's title.
Wouldn't be against it. Would not be against it. Raquel Rodriguez, of course, is meant to be kayfabe injured. So obviously Liv Morgan is injured. So they need to actually line people up to take on Rhea Ripley at this particular time. But one thing we must remember, there are matches that have been bumped, or we feel bumped from SummerSlam. But to have those matches bumped, we got a SummerSlam Battle Royal that's got LA Knight. WWE have found a way to put LA Knight on this card on SummerSlam. Now you think that's what the people want. So if those people are going to get those spots, other people or not. And of course, we've even seen some big names like Becky, Trish, Rhea Ripley, Raquel, all lose their spots on SummerSlam this year. Time will tell if that was the right move or the wrong move. But C Nation says he could also see Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler happening after SummerSlam. They have history in NXT. In fact, they do. In fact, Rhea Ripley ended Shayna Baszler's run as NXT Women's Champion on my birthday a few years ago.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was a
present
present or not.
Wasn't it?
It was just before Christmas. Yes, they were celebrating in the ring. I thought it was for me celebrating my birthday, but actually it was for Rhea winning the title. But ego, I don't know. Scott Retro Wrestling says, have we seen Jeff Jarrett and Grado interview on TalkSport? I haven't, so unfortunately I can't comment. But NXSteve, have you seen that?
I haven't. No, I didn't even know they were doing an interview. I don't even know what it's for. Man, they're not part. Jeff's still part of AEW, I presume, isn't he? He's backstage now. No, I haven't seen it.
No, we'll have to fish it and check it out. But thank you for bringing it to our attention, Scott, though. We will look out for it. C Nation says, Liv cashing in on Ronda Rousey still makes no sense to me. I never saw a babyface cash in on a babyface. Apparently, Ronda was the one that actually, going back to one of Tom Colley's old streams now from a long time ago, this was Ronda's call back then, apparently. Ronda wanted to make a start at Liv Morgan, and this was her call to do so. It didn't work out in the long term at the time, although Liv Morgan has remained and kept her popularity, but there was a period that people were turning off of it a little bit.
Wasn't that the one where... Was that where Shayna... Was that the one where Liv... Was it... Ronda had Liv in like an armbar submission, but had Ronda's shoulders on the mat, and she got pinned just as Liv was tapping out. Was that, or is that I'm thinking of a completely different match?
That was at SummerSlam, so that was the rematch. The first match was a roll-up victory from Liv Morgan, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the submission one was put on her, but Liv got out of it and managed to get a roll-up to get the championship. Right. But yeah.
All props to Ronda for wanting to push Liv. Jeez, man, how many times have we sat there? I've turned around and said, why Liv's always been one of them ones that's so close to the top and just falls at the final hurdle. So yeah, props to her for that. But I can understand what you mean. Liv Morgan just cashing in on Ronda doesn't make sense, but unfortunately, it's what we get because WWE doesn't like booking a Money in the Bank story for the women longer than 24 hours.
No, doesn't seem to be long. Although thankfully, Io Sky, the second longest holder, just under a month, ladies and gentlemen, just under a month. Let's hope she keeps it just a bit longer. I'm just getting comfortable with the idea of it, so keep the story progressing a bit more, please. Speaking of Baszler, why didn't she win the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania 36 after she dominated the event and we knew Becky was leaving? Is beyond me. Why didn't Shayna take the belt? Well, NXSteve, I know that every time we talk about Shayna Baszler, we go back to when Shayna debuted, just before the pandemic, just before this match was made into a thing. And you said that Shayna Baszler of that era should have dominated. So I'm sure you are in full agreement with this.
If you imagine the story that we could have got out of it, because you obviously had Shayna come in, she bites the back of Becky's neck off. It's amazing. There's children in the audience crying their eyes out at the fact that someone's done it. Shayna looks like a complete animal, and then Shayna loses at Mania when it's like, and then hang on, if I remember correctly, wasn't this then? Didn't this then go on to Money in the Bank, where Asuka won the Money in the Bank, and then she'd won the Raw title? Yes. So it was like, why you could have literally had an Oscar Shayna story, and it would have been like it would, again, their history. Or mind you, this is the time when their lineage doesn't matter, and NXT doesn't exist in 2019. So do you know what I mean? They don't honestly care about it. But like I said, if we'd have got that Shayna, she would have been massive. But just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. Like I said, hopefully Trips will do the right thing and book Shayna correctly, but it's a case of waiting and seeing. But there's only so much time you can wait before you start to go, I don't think you're ever going to get that push.
We'll have to wait and see. Time will tell on that one. WrestleBoom says, after SummerSlam, I want to see Karrion Kross and then get pushed. One of them should beat Austin Theory for the US Championship. Just his opinion. I agree with that. LA Knight is the one for me. That's the one I want to see do it.
Yeah, I'd like to see LA Knight do it as well. It's just a case, like I said earlier on in the stream, it's a case of if they ever actually finally get to pushing LA Knight instead of delaying it. And Karrion Kross, for God's sake, he needs something. And the guy has been floundering since his return, doing absolutely nothing. And now he's just apparently picking off members of the OC.
Absolutely. And when he needs something, I'm not just talking about a haircut. Yes, C Nation goes on to say, I'd be fine seeing Gunther and Ilya Intercontinental title feud in the future, but Gunther will go over. And at this particular moment, I would agree with you. At this moment, we'll have to wait and see how long Gunther will hold that championship, though. Will he get past SummerSlam versus Drew McIntyre is the question. Eric went on a 21-year break, but fun fact, Liv Morgan got him back into wrestling. Now, fun little story there. Of course, Liv Morgan, that's passion, awesome. Dedication. It is awesome to see. Good to see that people come back into this, and there are people that have the ability to capture an audience in. Eric, thank you for sharing that with us. C Nation says Finn Balor will win the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam, and then Damian Priest will cash in, and then Finn Balor will have another less than day title reign. That may be a prediction that I may share with you. It might not be a prediction I share with you. I'll tell you tomorrow. But NXTeve, it's a fun theory that's been put out there. Let's say that from CD for now.
It's a fun idea, but it's not my prediction. Mine's even more outlandish than that.
It's not Io Sky cashing in, is it?
Possibly.
Possibly. Got to tune in tomorrow, folks.
Io cashing in on Seth Rollins becoming the new World Heavyweight Champion standard.
I'm trying to get it out of Steve. I'm trying to. We'll have to wait till tomorrow, though. We're not alone. Cyber Sunday, Taboo Tuesday. I like the unpredictable feel of it. Remember when Shelton Benjamin beat Chris Jericho for winning IC title? I remember that as well. It's my favorite Taboo Tuesday moment from the very first show. Probably the one that
Shelton
was.
Didn't know he was winning it. Shelton didn't know he was winning it until the bell rung, until the match started.
Amazing. I like that. I like that a lot. Hot take. Chad Gable shouldn't be Gunther to win the IC title. Alpha Academy to win the tag team titles. I'm with you on that one. Also, Drew McIntyre should be the one to win the IC title from Gunther. Think about it. Why would Drew McIntyre go back to WWE to win nothing? I thought he would leave at one point. It looks like he's sticking around, at least for the time being. I would like to see him win the IC title, but potentially not just yet. But hey, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly anything you'd like to add that we haven't said already on Drew and Gunther without giving a prediction at this point, because it's getting very, very tempting. CD.
The idea of Drew McIntyre leaving, WWE has a lot of money, and when you put a lot of zeros at the end of a paycheck, it does a lot of things to convince people to stay.
It does indeed. It does indeed. WrestleBoom also sharing the same feeling there of Drew McIntyre dethroning Gunther. Is Dom getting a similar path to Rocky Maivia, which is a much needed heel turn? Absolutely. Dom has had that heel turn for well over a year now, and I've got to say, it is absolutely golden. It's doing him great great stuff right now. And now I love the fact as well we've got him versus Dragon Lee next week with Rey Mysterio in the house for NXT as well. Looks like it's going to be a can't miss show. My hot take is Seth Rollins is a better champion than Roman Reigns. Well, he's defending his championship more. Roman has the story of the bloodline. I guess it all comes down to preference at this particular moment. C Nation says, remember when they said Dirty Dominic Mysterio should go back to NXT, but right when he goes, when he gets good, he goes to NXT. WWE has bad timing sometimes. Is it bad timing, or do you reckon it actually worked out right in the end?
I think it's the right thing to do. He's the biggest heel in the company at the minute, one of the biggest heels in the company. You're not going to have Roman go down to NXT, so you have Dom go down. It's an idea and a way to essentially, like, I think this is a good way to have a transitional champion for the North American Championship, and I think it works out well. Dom being like the first guy to main event Raw, SmackDown, and NXT in the same week. Do you know what I mean? So the guy's doing something right. So yeah, it's I think it's a clever idea. Like he said, it's like I said, he's one of the biggest heels. Why not have him on all three shows? He's got that freedom to go and do that. That's the joys of the character, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it just ticked a lot of the boxes at the time. Wesley was the one babyface champion that he could dethrone to actually get that heat. Also, Rey Mysterio was going for the US title, wins the North American title. North America is bigger, represents more places. He threw that out there as well, making the name more relevant. So for me, it just ticked a lot of the things at the time for Dirty Dom.
My issue is that the fact that he's North American champion and Solo was North American champion but got called up to the main roster and then had to hand the title back because he wasn't officially the contender for the title. I think it's just a little rubbish. But, you know, that's just me nitpicking.
It is a nitpick. Me and Temple Plains talked about this on a recent stream as well. But Ed Fry's brought in the very good comment of the fact that right now WWE is looking to negotiate those TV deals. Might be why it matters less now than what it mattered then. But yeah, I actually agree with you. It's still a nitpick, I feel, to this day as well. Seth Rollins said a better.
Just to talk about their TV deals quickly. I mean, I don't think we're going to see as much money as we did the last time. I think that the point that WWE have to do now is they have to find a streaming service that will deal with it as well, because it's just the way that the world's going. Everything's going to a streaming platform media, and I think that, like, not everyone wants to spend a tenner a month on the WWE network, but I think if they, for instance, ever in the UK, they're on. I can watch Raw and SmackDown every week in NXT for nothing, because it's part of my subscription to what previously was BT Sport, which is now TNT Sport. Do you know what I mean? And it's a much easier way than, like, I wouldn't be against them putting it on the network and watching it live on the network. Do you know what I mean? But then it kills their TV deal problem. But I can't see him getting another £1 billion out of Fox. I'd be very, very shocked.
No. It'll be interesting to see how it's going to play out with these TV deals, but Nick Khan has done wonders in the most recent deals they've done, so we'll see where they lead to going forward. Just to give one a shout as well, we're literally going to do about 10, 12 minutes more of questions, and then we'll be wrapping things up here today. Unfortunately, I will have a bit more of a cutthroat schedule that I do have to come off earlier today, unfortunately. Numiko says, do you see Asuka and Rhea's title runs? How do you see the title run so far? Wrestling fans, wrestling media have constantly bashing Asuka's title run for the past 4 years, while Rhea Ripley has 0 opponents since May, or perhaps, I guess from news opinion there, 0 credible opponents since May. Personally, for me, I think they're just getting going. I think that they've been slow burns. For me, Asuka in particular has had a better run with the championship because the SmackDown Women's Division has a number of contenders going for her. Obviously, she's got Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair going for that championship. You've got Io Sky with the briefcase in the background. Bayley is there as well. So there is people that are going for that championship. Rhea, on the other hand, like we say, she's just been dominant. She's not had the opportunity to really defend this championship much recently because she's putting everybody out of action. But Judgment Day do seem to be one of the hottest acts in WWE. For me, I think it's something to judge later than judge now. How do you feel, NXSteve?
Yeah, it is a bit harsh that, like, that SmackDown Women's roster is stacked, and yet the only person who's at the moment probably got some credibility that could take that title for Rhea is Becky Lynch, who's currently tied up with Trish Stratus. So it's just the way it is, unfortunately. But then because Rhea is part of the Judgment Day, which is one of the biggest stories at the minute, it kind of goes unnoticed. Whereas over on SmackDown, the women's title is kind of the main focus of interest, and it's just always been the way of Asuka. Every time she's had a women's title, it's just, apart from pandemic era, it's just always been a bit of a letdown, apparently, according to some journalists, some fans, whoever.
Absolutely. But the thing is, for me, I do feel at the same time, though, like Asuka is one of the most talented people on the roster. Like when you look at it in ring, she's fantastic what she does. Sometimes creative, I don't think is given the best work to work with, but she always makes the best of it a lot of the time. And I've got to say, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed her. We talk about the promos and stuff when she's done the Japanese promos, but her promo this week in English was fantastic as well backstage. I don't think a lot of the time I think, almost given dare I say, a goofier portrayal of what she has to. She clearly can deliver like the lines very, very well in a sort of sinister, menacing kind of way, and I want to see that more often, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a case of that every week you just don't know what you're going to get with Asuka. You don't know if she's going to be comedy, if it's going to be heel, if it's going to be face. Do you know what I mean? It's just every week just seems to be a different thing. I mean, like, why give her the poison mist? And yet I think she's only hit it on one person since she's had it. It's like, I mean, some creative just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. Like, hopefully, someone somewhere decides to just finally turn around and go, do you know what? Let's book Asuka a little bit better than what she's currently doing.
Absolutely. And I agree with Mike here. We will get that program at some point with Io Sky. I'm quite
Hopefully.
looking forward to it as well. Could be even as soon as this Saturday, depending on how booking does go. WrestleBoom says, just my opinion, Aleister Black and Keith Lee should not have been released by WWE back in 2021. Well, perhaps they shouldn't have been. I mean, they're both doing good stuff in AEW. Would have preferred them in WWE, but I guess it didn't work out that way, sadly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how much Keith Lee. Do you remember the Rumble when Brock Lesnar eliminated the first 15 guys and Keith Lee come out? And I was like, my God, I would love to see a Brock Lesnar Keith Lee program because I think that'd be absolutely amazing. And now we don't get it. And now we just get Keith Lee doing nothing in AEW, unfortunately. He's kind of back to where he was at the start of his NXT career.
Absolutely. It does feel like they've gone a few steps backwards. It gets a lot of showcase moments, but nothing concrete going forward in AEW. I want to see more with Keith Lee, but not seeing enough of it at the moment. Obviously, Malachi Black doing terrific work in the trios right now with the House of Black. Obviously, the Andrade feud has been quite fun on Collision as well. Ryan Lowe says, has it been thought of that Shotzi may cost Io her cash in? I haven't thought of that, to be honest. I've been thinking Bayley's the one that's going to cost Io. What's your thoughts on NXT? Could Shotzi be the one?
It's a possibility. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not impressed that they made her shave her head. I think that's just, I hate it when they do stuff like this, man. I can't imagine Shotzi was standing around and went, oh, I know it's a crave idea. Let me shave my headboard. I really am not a fan of it.
She did, actually.
I'm just not a big fan of it. Was it her idea?
It was her idea, yeah. I think a family member, I want to say sister, but it's a family member, apparently has got cancer and it's done in support.
Oh, okay. All right, my apologies. And I didn't know the story behind it, or I just thought it was a case of WWE just using some cheap ploy to go, oh no, we'll just get her to shave her headboard. But fine. If, like I said, if she's got reason, there's a reason behind it, and she's doing it to show support to someone in her family who's suffering, then by all means, I'm up for it. But yeah, I just we've seen this so many times before. Like, do you remember when Serena Deeb had to shave her head as part of the Straight Edge Society, and it was like, do you know what I mean? It's like. I can't imagine Serena Deeb was all up for it. It was just a case of, I don't get me wrong, it kind of fit the look of Straight Edge Society, but I don't think no one's thrilled when they've got long hair and they want to have it shaved off. I don't think anyone's happy with that.
No, absolutely not. But to be fair, if I have short hair, I don't want it shaved off. But at the same time, I understand where you're coming from entirely when it comes to that situation. Yeah. But Shotzi, to be fair, with the character direction they've gone with it, I've really enjoyed since she's done it. And to be fair, we're talking about the idea of Shotzi costing Io. Maybe that Shotzi's involvement with Bayley is what accidentally cost Io. Maybe it's not purposely done. It's on Shotzi's doing, which actually brings another player into it as well. So something we have to take into consideration. Thank you, Ryan, for bringing that comment to our attention.
I mean, I suppose on the plus side, it's gonna raise Shotzi's profile a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and that's something that's good that comes from this as well. Fun fact as well from WrestleBoom, Ricochet won a match on pay-per-view. Last time was at Stomping Grounds 2019. It's a long time. He's due.
You know why? Because half the time he's always in these multi-man matches, in Money in the Bank and all this kind of stuff, and he never picks up wins, and it's like, my God, that's outrageous.
Absolutely. CD actually says that WrestleMania being 2 nights is special. Maybe it would be too much with the other ones. I think it's a fair comment that's been brought in there. Becky Trish as well will have a tiebreaker match because Trish won the first match and Becky won the second match by DQ. Yes, so we're 1-on-1 at this moment. Shawn Michaels breaking the rules? Nah, he would never. Absolute Eric. You see what I see. You see why he would never do such a thing. C Nation says that Shawn Michaels is smart to trick the fans into thinking they won't win. Exactly. Found someone say War Games. Well, NXT, you do a good War Games.
War Games.
There you go. Beautifully done each and every time there. WrestleBoom, Kevin Owens should win a world championship before he retires. Certainly was Universal Champion. Would love to see it one more time. Absolutely agree with that. C Nation says that Seth Rollins is my favorite wrestler because he created so many great memories. I like him cashing in at WrestleMania 31, which is a superb memory in the WWE calendar. Richard saying that we'll get Rip Ripley versus Becky Lynch at SummerSlam instead. Sadly, Richard, I don't think that's going to happen, but I love your optimism. Certainly a match I want to see further down the line, potentially around Royal Rumble or WrestleMania season. WrestleMania, Kevin Owens has been Universal Champion. He has been Universal Champion before. We've got Imoni. I hope I've said that right there. Imoni Bentley. Jey Uso winning the Universal Championship. Well, certainly we put it on the thumbnail. We're teasing the idea of new champions. Obviously, we could get new champions. Obviously, Finn Balor's on that thumbnail was where we are going to reserve the predictions for today, but good to see that you have shared yours. On a percentage scale, I mean, there's a chance one of those titles could be a reality after Saturday, but I'm not going to tell you yet which one it's going to be, in my opinion.
50-50.
50-50, exactly. 50-50. C-Nation says Rhea Ripley has a lot of feuds incoming. Becky Lynch, Liv Morgan, Shayna Baszler, to name a few. Absolutely, there's a lot going on for us there. And also, he is happy that Liv Morgan became SmackDown Women's Champion. Just felt like it was a rush. Would have wanted to wait until she became a heel champion, so that would have felt right. Would have been something different. Certainly would have been interesting had they waited on it. I mean, they've waited a bit on EO, and I think it's been nice to see the Money in the Bank briefcase breathe a little bit on the women's side this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen it. For starters, we don't think we've ever seen a heel Liv Morgan, which is something I would love to see. Like, even when back in the Riot Squad days, she was always kind of the face one in the at the three of them. But yeah, to see him use it for more than 5 minutes as part of the story is just amazing for the women's division. And it's going to play off so much more in the long run. Do you know what I mean? It's a year-long story, and it's free creative for you, so you don't even have to. Do you know what I mean? You haven't got to stay up all night worrying what you're going to do with it. It's the easiest thing to book. It
really is. It really is. In so many ways that could still be used with that briefcase that haven't been booked over the years. It's madness to think that some easy methods WWE could do with it, and they haven't done it. Apparently, Baszler didn't win the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania 36 because Vince said he wanted to win the title in front of a crowd. Interesting. Didn't know that information. But Drew McIntyre won the WWE Championship in front of no fans. He did, and sadly hasn't won it again since. We will not talk about Clash at the Castle today, though. I'm going to spare NXSteve the pain of that today. Richard says, after SummerSlam, I want to see Zoe start getting a pushing WWE to stop Becky Lynch. Wants to see her join Judgment Day. Always join Judgment Day, Richard. Loving your consistent is what I will say with that. But Zoe Stark certainly. Hopefully, if Trish goes away after this program with Trish Stratus, which is rumored can happen, Zoe Stark would like to see her continue to get a run on Raw. She seems to be building at a nice pace, I feel.
Yeah, she's had enough time now to show what she can do in a ring. She's had enough time now to develop her own character. I mean, I think probably the way to go out is by having her turn on Trish. I think that would give her an edge and give them a reason to write out Trish a bit more, and then make Zoe a bigger heel than she already is.
I would agree. I think that would be a good way to go. Really, really, really would be a good way to go. WrestleBoom wants to see Tommaso Ciampa versus Ilya Dragunov. Where can you take my money for that? I would love to see that as well. WrestleBoom says, fun fact, Drew McIntyre's never won a match against Roman Reigns. Very true. Very, very true. Hopefully one day. But yeah, you can see NXT. Let's not put pain in his eyes at this moment. Hot take spoiler. I think it means hot take then, Richard says Zoe Stark will be in the Royal Rumble. I hope so. And she'll be winning last. Eliminating Becky Lynch. Well, we'll have to wait and see a little while down the line. But like you're thinking ahead, I'd be up for it as well. Not a bad take from Richard. Drew McIntyre and Tommaso Ciampa would also be a very good match there. Liking the idea of that. Sinistro says, I have a feeling that Dragon Lee may beat Dirty Dom Mysterio to win the North American Championship because Rey Mysterio is in Dragon Lee's corner. They have given that tease there. I also have a bit of hope it may happen. And C Nation says that the reason why Solo Cola had to vacate that championship is because he originally wasn't scheduled to be in the match which he won. So yeah, that was the rules for that there.
Load of rubbish.
Yes, exactly. Fun fact as well, Sheamus versus Shinsuke Nakamura never happened in a one-on-one match. Would love to see it. Still time. There's still time. We'd like to see that. And also, Seth Rollins has a better career than Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns can say he's the tribal chief, but was it better run than Seth Rollins' run? Well, Seth Rollins has been defending that championship on and on and on, and also has had a better win record against Roman Reigns. So maybe he does have a point.
Yeah, but then has Seth Rollins gone 3 years as a world champion? Do you know what I mean?
There we go. And also we've got a shout as well about Bron Breakker and Von Wagner having a feud in the comments. So before we do leave today, because we've caught up with all the comments that we're going to read out now for us, just want to get your quick take of a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. First off, SummerSlam 2023, our predictions are tomorrow. It is one of the biggest shows of the year. What's the excitement levels? Do you feel like it's SummerSlam season? Have you got that buzz and that excitement?
I'll be honest with you, SummerSlam is not normally my favorite pay-per-view of the year. For me, it just feels like it's every August. And like the Rumble has its gimmick, Mania is Mania, Survivor Series normally has its gimmick. SummerSlam to me has always kind of feel like the number, if you had to rank them, would be number 4. Last year, improved greatly on expectations to expect from a SummerSlam. I'm hoping this year will be the same, especially with Vince not being there because of his back injury or his operation that he's had last week or whatever it was. He's supposed to be at home nursing, so he's not going to be involved as much. I am expecting it to be somewhat on the same level as last year, and I really enjoyed last year's one.
I really enjoyed last year's one as well. I really hope that it'll be the same. And for me, the card this year, I'm actually thinking it's a good looking card. I think it's stacked from top to bottom. Would I have liked to see those couple of extra women's matches? Yes, I would. But of course, I don't want a 5-hour show either. And I think that there are reasons why they have done the changearounds that they have done. And I think it will work out well in the end for everybody involved. And obviously, call up said to the members, JD Madonna and already there, Richard, by the way. Same as Zoe Stark, actually, just seen on the comments there as we come up. They're already there. And last comment here from WrestleBoom. He says, early prediction, Io Sky will win the Royal Rumble, and Cody Rhodes will go on to win the men's one as well there. Seth Rollins also to beat Brock Lesnar for the US Championship. He did that injury 2019. Has Roman beat Brock Lesnar clean? Clean? Not so sure, but he has beat Brock Lesnar on a few occasions previously. But to go on NXSteve, I understand what you mean with SummerSlam. Hasn't always been my favorite pay-per-view of the year. In recent years, I'm going to say recent years, growing up, I loved SummerSlam almost as much, if not more than WrestleMania. You got to a certain point where I kind of felt the same with you, not the same buzz. But this year, for me, I do feel that, like you say, it has that same feeling as last year. Last year was a really exciting pay-per-view. And of course, we're talking about matches being bumped off of SummerSlam, by the way. We're talking about the Trish and Becky match not happening, Rhea's match not happening. Last year, Seth and Riddle was pulled from SummerSlam. So it does happen. It does happen. And big
how much better was that at Clash? It was a lot better at Clash than it would have been.
Absolutely. So there we go. It does happen. But before we do close off today, and thank you very much, Sinesh, for saying great stream, by the way. Do appreciate it indeed there. Also got a shout out from Richard saying Beth Phoenix versus Zoe Stark. Loves Zoe Stark there. And would love to see that match. Would not be against it. We need to talk about this just before we leave here today. The Elite re-sign with All Elite Wrestling, AEW. There's been a few quotes that have been put out there. Obviously, it's their baby, if you will. It's the company that they started with. They are the E in AEW. And of course, if they were to leave, they want to see this go through. It's different to what they started with, but this is their place, and it will always be their place. Do you feel it was the right move that this re-signed with AEW?
Yes, I think it is. I think if they were all about the money, then no. I think WWE would have been the easiest shout. They were going to pay them stupid amounts of money and probably wouldn't have had to have wrestled half as much as what they probably will do with AEW. But AEW just gives them their creative freedom. It allows them to do what they want to do. Especially with the fact that you've got All In coming up, it's going to be the biggest pay-per-view. It's going to be the biggest wrestling event in the UK ever. Do you know what I mean? It just shows that the company is going in the right direction, that if you make wrestling affordable to people, then you can do amazing things. Like, I wouldn't have gone it, like, my ticket was, I think, £30 or something like that. And it's like, I can imagine, and I've not got great seats, but then I'm lucky enough to know that in Wembley, there isn't really a bad seat in Wembley Stadium. So I know that I'm going to still have a decent view of it all. But I know for a fact that if I'd have gone to a WWE pay-per-view at Wembley, those cheap seats probably would have been about 2, 3, 4 times as much as what they would have done. And do you know what I mean? It's just a great thing to see that they've got this faith in this company that's, do you know what I mean? It's been built for the fans. And like, let's be honest, there's a reason why people were going there. There's a reason why Adam Cole signed on with there. There's a reason why, like, Jay White signed on with there instead of going to WWE. There is something special about AEW. Like, I don't get me wrong, I'm not AEW's biggest fan. I can't say I watch every single bit of their content. I keep up to date with it all. But, do you know what I mean? It's nice to have another option to watch rather than WWE, because, let's be honest with you, WWE isn't perfect. And so I think it's nice to have something else out there to watch. And like I said, there's people over like Adam Cole over there, man. Adam Cole, I think he's amazing. He's one of my favorite wrestlers as well. And do you know what I mean? At some point, I'm going to see him fight MJF. I'd like to see him at some point have a match with Kenny Omega, and he's only going to do that if they all stay in All Elite Wrestling. But yeah, keeping the 4 of them there is just the wisest. It's the smartest thing to do. Plus, they're still EVPs, man. Who wants to leave a job as an executive vice president just to go down to be a wrestler? Doesn't make sense.
No, I understand it. I mean, the thing is, I was talking to Jonesy earlier, and I kind of felt like he was disappointed that they didn't make the jump to WWE, maybe because of matches that potentials we could see them in WWE. But at the same time, I looked at it and felt like, you know, Jonesy mentioned about Brawl Out as well. Obviously, it's not a company, and that's probably put into the comments that Matt Jackson put out along the lines of it's a bit different to where we started. But at the same time, you look at it and say that they've addressed this as best as they can. Obviously, CM Punk's the Collision guy, and we've got Dynamite as well, obviously, where, you know, Kenny and the Bucks will be on the Wednesday nights, and they'll have to be under the same roof at some point. But at the same time, they seem to have done it a couple of times already without any problems so far. There does seem to be a little bit of how do we put this? Digs, maybe not so subtle digs, obviously, from CM Punk, that their direction. Obviously, his first promo back that he made, where he made actually about the Buck reference, and obviously this week he put the cross over the E as well on that Real World's Championship as well. So I feel that there are those digs there, but at the same time, if they can get on the same page to do a program, it would be money. It would be, you know, that would be talked about in amongst wrestling fans. Obviously, we can't talk about every casual fan out there, because not every casual fan follows everything that we follow. But from a wrestling standpoint, everyone that follows wrestling, if they heard there was the Elite versus CM Punk at some point, cash on the table, everyone involved, FTR, do the 6-man tag, do the singles match Omega versus Punk, the match that should have happened. Almost feels like if you don't do Hogan versus Flair in 1992 WWF, you know what I mean? That's such a big missed opportunity if you don't do it. Money's there on the table to be made. Would I love that to be at All In? Absolutely, but it's not going to be. But there is a potential for that to happen one day. And if everyone can get on the same page, it would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing for me as well is that, especially with Hangman, that I think that eventually at some point he would just get lost in the shuffle at WWE. I think that he's such a big star, like being in the first ever World's Championship match against Chris Jericho for AEW. And I don't think if he was in WWE, he'd ever get to that point being in WWE. And for me, I think he'd be lost in the shuffle eventually. Like if they came in, for example, as a faction, Kenny's going to obviously be Kenny and just go straight to the top. You can see him having 5-star classics with Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Would be absolutely amazing. The Bucks would do some great stuff with the likes of the New Day, the Usos. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see the Usos against the Young Bucks. I think it'd be a great match. But at the end of the day, we know what WWE are like with their tag team divisions. And once the hype is dying down, the tag team division dies out. Hangman, he probably get a decent IC title run at one point, and then he'd just fade off into obscurity, I think. And out of the 4 of them, Kenny would be the only one I think that would gradually really go on to succeed at WWE. So I think staying there is just the best decision for him.
It seems to be at this particular time. Of course, there's many dream matches I'd love to see him have in WWE. I suppose they get to call their shot on the contracts, but like you say, there is always that things where plans can change and stuff like that. So I think for them, they obviously feel like it's the right move, and obviously they've made this decision, and we'll have to see how it will play out. Apparently it's a multi-year deal, so I mean, time will tell if it ends up being the right move for them, if it will be the right move for AEW, and obviously to have, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer for AEW to have these guys re-signed, because they are the biggest names, the founders, part founders of this company. So, you know, to lose them, you're losing a lot of your cornerstones, you know, of the company, the quarterbacks, if you will, for NFL reference, you know.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing as well. The fact that they've managed to re-sign them all is like you'd probably sit there and go, well, hang on a minute. If these 3-4 guys have gone and they've been here since day one, what's the reason? Why have they left? What reason have I got to stay here? Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it just makes sense for them to stay.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, we think then that they've made the right move in a re-signing. You can let us know what you think in the comments below. But that's it for us here today. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button, share with a friend, and subscribe as well while you're at it. Indeed, of course, NXTsteve and myself will be back tomorrow. I'll be joined with Jonesy Chats Wrestling. We'll be giving our SummerSlam predictions. That'll be 10 p.m. UK time. It'll be 5 p.m. Eastern, of course. So we'll be going through all the 8 matches, giving our picks, and obviously calling up your comments as well to get your predictions for the show. Thank you all for watching. Look after yourselves and each other. If you didn't get a chance to watch the ultimate SummerSlam quiz earlier on, myself and NXTsteve, go and check that out now. And yeah, thank you all for watching. If you've been watching both videos, by the way, from start to finish, a massive thank you. You've taken like 2 hours out of your day to watch 2 streams here on this channel. It's greatly appreciated. NXTsteve, closing words before we leave. I just want to say a big thank you for being on the video as always.
No, it's always a pleasure. Like I said, come back tomorrow, man. Come get these. I'm telling you now, one of my predictions is going to be so far out there. You're going to be like, nah, this guy's waffling, man. I'm telling you, man. One of them is going to be so stupid that you're just going to laugh at me, but I'll enjoy it.
And so are we. I'm looking forward to this. You've sold it so well. You've sold it so well. So I can't wait for it. It's going to be very exciting to see indeed. But thank you all for watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time. All the best.